Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Kingdom Magazine, Kingdom Council. Tonight, we have a very important subject to discuss. Something that the media is not warning us about, something that our government is not warning us about, something our politicians do not want us to know, but something that the economists are very concerned with, and that is our economic state here in the United States. So tonight we're going to be discussing the distraction game. What's really going on behind the scenes, in the crevices and creases of our oh great nation, America? What's really happening right now? Inflation rates sky high. I'm sure all of you can attest to the fact that gas prices are out the roof, grocery prices out the roof. People are struggling, but still, it just seems like bright, sunny days ahead, and no one seems too concerned, although the economists are. So, we have a special guest with us tonight, Elder Shemaiah, Minister of Information from the United Nation of Israel, to help us unpack what's really going on in our economy, why are economists worried, and why we should also be worried. What does Ukraine and the war with Russia have to do with everything that's going on in America? Why are we even being affected by their war? Why are we involved with it? So, tonight we're going to be discussing all of those things, more anti Semitic news. What does the violence in our country have to do with our economic state, and how all of this plays into the larger distraction at hand? So, Elder Shemaiah, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'd love to just find out more about what's going on with the Ukraine Russia situation. Why are we seeing the residual effects of that here in America?
Wow, this is a very important subject matter because the powers that be, and we know that the current media is bought and paid for. So they're not telling you what's vital, but they're telling you what they want you to know. And as we speak in terms of our nation in relation to America, that is the nation that we are captive to. But we're coming forward to you by way of the United Nation of Israel to tell you the truth. And as my sister just said, I am Shemaiah Samuel, Chairman and Minister of Information for the United Nation of Israel, our nation, your nation, one nation under the Most High Almighty Yah. And so we see the headlines all the time. We see Russia going against the Ukraine. We hear the media depict Russia as being the bad guy. Russia is attacking their sovereignty. Russia is bullying the Ukraine. Well, one, if I can digress a little bit, if you go back and look at the history of Russia and the Ukraine and many of the Slavic nations in that region, they are all the same people. If you go back and research history concerning the Byzantine and Ottoman Empire, those are the same nations that arise from that. And Russia has always been on the forefront speaking about Ukraine since they've been an independent nation, but from the terms that they are the same people. So that's why the president of Russia, Putin, is very adamant about his position in relation to the Ukraine. Well, let's look at that in more great detail. The Ukraine is saying that Russia is, coming against them to bring them under the control of Russia. That may be true, but why is that happening? More importantly, what is the image that the media in the United States is declaring why that's occurring? Again, they're telling us that they're just bullying the Ukraine. But in reality, they are the same people. It's about Russia uniting its strength as one nation. And it's no different from the European Union. You have several countries in the European Union that are separate, but they fall under the auspices of the European Union. And all their independent currencies fall under what they call the euro. So whether it's Poland, whether it's Rome, they have their independent currency, but they all are equated into the euro as a standard. So they have Russia globally being painted as the bad guy. But why is that? That gets into what we're going to discuss even further about um, the fiat currency, and we talked about that in our previous show. What is fiat currency? Fiat currency is a currency that's not backed by a precious commodity like gold. So with you being on a fiat standard, that means that you can control the flow of the monetary system based upon the demands of that particular country. So Russia is in alliance with China, who is trying. They're both brokering a deal with the Middle East to really deal with the uh, purchase of oil in the Chinese yen. And I think we're gonna also discuss about that in more in detail in the flow of what's the difference between fiat currency and a currency that's backed by gold. But the truth of the matter in relation to the Russians really seizing control over the Ukraine has nothing to do with what is they're telling us in the media. We have to look behind the surface and know that there's more to meet the eye than what's been told to us in the modern mainstream media. So um, keep your eyes open and understand that there's several distractions that have pulled us away to really see what's going on. That's like right now we have this controversy with Will Smith and Chris Rock, this infamous smack. One would say, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, think about it, family. Who is the biggest consumer in the United States?
We are by
We are.
far.
Absolutely. So wouldn't that make sense to distract us?
It would. And the thing is, we're so easily distracted. So many minuscule and minor things occur on a large scale, and it just diverts our attention completely from the things that we should be focused on, such as this. Like, I think it's pertinent information to know that it could come a time where it may cost $50 for a loaf of bread. Then what are you going to do? How are you going to feed your family? Or if there is no food in the stores because Biden even alerted to say, hey, this whole situation in Ukraine and Russia could cause a food shortage. If that happens, how will you prepare? How will you feed your family? And so that's something that we've really been stressing here with the United Nation of Israel, with the kingdom, to be able to sustain yourself and rely on the Most High for everything that you're needing. You don't need to rely on your oppressors to feed your families. Why would you do that? Why would you even look for them to provide anything for you? There's no reason why we should be running to the store to be able to sustain daily life. We should be able to do that from what the Most High has given us. And so I'd love to discuss further just this whole fiat currency versus, currency based on a commodity. What does that mean for America? For America being a fiat based nation, if Russia, which is a powerhouse amongst the nations, moves towards this currency that's based on gold, what does that mean for our dollar? Will our dollar even be worth anything?
Well, you said some very important key things. And when you look up the definition of fiat currency again, it's not backed upon any precious commodity, but the full faith and credit of a particular nation. So that means it moves from being actually lawful money to what they call legal tender. This is play on words. Legal tender is utilized for to satisfy any debt. And so when we look at fiat versus gold, when you're on a fiat system, you can actually print money without any check and balance. In the
Mm,
United States, the entity that prints money is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private bank, and most people don't realize that it's a private banking system. Just because it says Federal Reserve does not mean that it is constitutionally bound to the United States. They are a private banking structure, and they control the rates and interest because back in 1913, under President Roosevelt, the United States went into business with the Federal Reserve along with other countries. And the Federal Reserve was always in business with financing countries. And they would finance two countries that could be at war with each other. They're financing both ends. So who benefits? Is it the countries or is it the private banking structure? The private banking structure is comprised by a host of families. And so those families are key in the structure of the Federal Reserve. So when you have a fiat currency system and you're bought into the Federal Reserve, that means that this private bank can control the interest rates. The private banking structure becomes the actual asset or the dictator of the asset.
So if the
Meaning,
private banking system is governed by these families or governed by these families, who are the families? Who put them in position to be controlling all of the money if it's
all
not
right,
even a government entity?
right. Well, you got a few of them. You got the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the J.P. Morgan Chases, and the Warburgs, just to name four of them. And they actually throughout time, through their lineage, they continue to perpetuate what was put in place those many years ago, and they pass it down through lineage through those that are of those particular families. Chase being still a big banking structure in the United States really monopolizes the whole market when it comes to banking. There's a lot of banks that, unbeknownst to the common public, that fall under the Chase infrastructure. And so there's a term that the Rothschilds or Rockefellers will use, and that is own nothing but control everything. It's about control. So the Federal Reserve does not own the United States, but they control the United States because they control the money supply. When you print money, we used to have what you call the United States Treasury, which is still there. And the United States used to print its own Treasury notes. And if a lot of those that are listening that are over 60 years old could go back and look at money at times back then, and it would say that it's redeemable for gold and silver.
Mm.
Well, the money that we have today, you can't redeem it for gold and silver. So you can't just take that dollar in and get the actual intrinsic value of whatever number that's on that dollar, whether it be a dollar bill, a $10 bill, a $20 bill, or $100 bill. You can't get its value in gold because it's not worth a weight in gold. At one point in time, our monetary system, every dollar that was printed was backed by the reserve, which was the gold that we had in reserve. So some would say, well, that means that limits you on how much money you can print. Yes, but what that also does, it keeps prices at a minimum. That what that means is what a house used to cost in 1913 would have not changed with in relation to time with a house what it costs in 2022. What how much better would that system be? It would be better for the consumer, but it wouldn't be better for the shareholders in the Federal Reserve System that's trying to monopolize the system and get rich off of everyone.
It's
So,
definitely a game of monopoly, seems like, because what benefit do we have to use it if it's not worth anything? If we work and labor all of our lives, I mean, the average person works like what, 50 years before they retire for
mhm,
a note that has no value at all?
Right.
What are we really talking about right now?
You know, it's these notes that we have are exactly that. Notes. They are promised to pay, and they're not intrinsic in value, but it's a debt note itself. So think about that. If you can wrap your mind around, I'm receiving debt notes as a form of payment. And now I'm going to take these debt notes when I get paid from my employer and cash my check. I'm going to take these debt notes in exchange for commodities that I need to live off of every day. So when that happens, what that does is create a sort of ideology in the consumer that, hey, it's perfectly fine. The more of these notes I have, the more commodities I can have in my possession. Then we can establish the poor class, the middle class, and the upper class based upon how many debt notes we have in our possession. But they are in fact debt notes. When you go and you go look to finance a car or a home, it's about your debt ratio, meaning that how much debt can this person hold is the basis of whether or not they're going to grant the loan or not. How diabolical is that? That's really saying how much can we get this person into more captivity is going to be the basis of whether or not we're going to give them a loan.
Scams. It
Right.
definitely seems like a scam. And then when you have a structure built on this type of system, I feel like that just generates the survival of the fittest mindset, which generates like violence and anger. Like, how do you survive in that type of mentality? How do you get ahead when all you're worried about is trying to get ahead, and you're just so focused on trying to keep what's yours and make more of what you have, but you really don't have anything if this is all that it's based on.
Absolutely. And think about this too. On top of the fact that you're receiving debt notes, then they institute taxation. So now you're paying federal, state, and local tax on a debt note, meaning you're going to pay taxes on a note that's not intrinsic in value. And the more debt notes you have, the more taxes that you pay. That's even more diabolical. When in essence, when you look at even the US Constitution, for those that don't know, and this is the additive to the conversation, lawful tax is only lawful when it's proportionate to the population. What does that mean? In layman terms, that means that if I make $100,000 and somebody else makes 50,000 and somebody else makes 20,000, we should all be paying the same amount of tax based upon the population size. It's just like when you go buy a can of soup. It doesn't matter that you make 200,000, 100,000, 50,000, or 20,000.
Right.
Whatever the tax is on that soup, that's what you pay. So by constitutional standards, that's lawful taxation. And they call that, in other words, a flat tax. But that's really what a republic nation should be based upon. But these families that are over the Federal Reserve have stood up a Federal Reserve system based upon the sweat equity of all those that are citizens within the United States. And what makes that appealing to everyone? Because now that the US dollar is the petrodollar, every time a country wants to purchase oil, that particular country has to exchange their currency into US dollars. When it turns it into US dollars, the shareholders or bondholders are now able to manipulate the market and go ahead and capitalize on those bonds that they issue for that particular exchange.
Hmm. Well, this definitely seems, I see why the United States is trying to distract us from all of these things. Because I'm sure the average person does not even know all of this is occurring in the back. And even right here on the screen is the US dollar in danger. The US cuts off Russia's central bank in aggressive note. Let's hear what they have to say about this.
Fortress economy, while he can go off on his Ukraine invasion and be safe at home. In a weekend, the West has cut that off and paralyzed that fortress economy. Global markets, you can see Europe has opened sharply lower here. This is really following from a rally rebound on Friday. So I wouldn't pay too much attention there to Asia, but look at U.S. futures. You're going to see a tough day. It is the ramifications of isolating this huge energy producer, right? And what could happen with the banking system around the world as you're trying to isolate Russian banks out of the system. Oil, incredibly important market here as well. We've seen big jumps in oil prices. That's going to feed into the global inflation story. Here's your Russian stock exchange. It's closed right now. It's closed for a reason. The central bank in Russia closed it because it would open down big.
It would be here,
yeah,
here.
And look, and the central bank has been sanctioned by the EU and by the US. I mean, this basically cripples the country's ability to finance this war, which is exactly what the Europeans and the Americans want to do. This is not just an energy and a 401k story as well. This is about the supplies of energy to the EU. It's a huge entwined geopolitical story there. And all these commodities from Russia and from the Ukraine, by the way, all of this could feed into that global inflation story we've talked about. We have supply chains that are going to be more snarled. And we have questions about how European and Western purchasers of these goods are going to be able to pay for them if indeed the world is going to isolate Vladimir Putin. And if the Russian economy has a panic, it is on the edge of financial ruin in near term here.
Wow. Financial ruin. Like, it definitely sounds like too. She said for them to finance the war. And so it definitely seems like this is more of like a debt swindling scheme than anything else. Like, it just sounds like this is a scheme to initiate something much larger than just economic downfall. Because we see what will happen anytime there's a recession. Everything just goes haywire. People are on edge. They're trying to figure out how to provide. People are losing their jobs. Homelessness skyrockets. Drug use skyrockets, all sorts of things. And even the World Bank is like, this is an economic catastrophe, but yet we're over here watching Will Smith and Chris Rock dupe it out on stage, and all these other people who really should not even be owning what we're looking at right now.
You know, it's very important for our people to listen. And that clip shared a lot of information. They said that the United States and the European Union was putting sanctions on Russia so that they could not finance their war. So that goes into proving that the Federal Reserve is into financing other countries no matter what. So what they're saying in essence is, look, we're going to isolate them from not being able to utilize the fiat currency, which is not backed by gold, mind you. So now Russia is looking to put themselves on a gold standard and quantify their currency by actual gold. So you have to ask yourself the question, which one is more valuable? It's the gold. Think about it from this standpoint. If you were to, if you had a commodity and somebody was coming to you and they came to you with monopoly money and they wanted to purchase whatever you were selling, and somebody came to you with actual money that's backed by gold, which one would you utilize?
The money backed by the gold.
Absolutely. So that's why this war is really a big issue with the United States, because you have to ask yourself the question, when, for all these years we talk about oil, why is it all of a sudden that we're getting oil from Russia and it's affecting our oil supply the way that it is? I thought that we were getting our oil from the Middle East. So what does Russia have to do with this effect on the United States prices for gas? We got to start paying attention to what's going on and ask the key questions. Why is this occurring? You never heard this before, But the issue is that China and Russia are brokering deals with the Middle East to actually purchase their petroleum or their oil in the Chinese currency. Now, the United States is strategic. They are not putting any kinds of sanctions on China because they know China is a power force. If they go directly against China, they will be biting off something that they do not want to do. So they're
For
very strategic and political in the choices that they're making. Between Russia and China, they'll rather go after Russia.
Wow. I mean, even on the screen, we see Biden says to expect real food shortages due to Ukraine war.
With
Still, it's
regard
like,
to food shortages,
why are we affected by these things?
I'll talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia, it's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example, just to give one example. But we had a long discussion in the G7 with with both the United States, which has a significant, the third largest producer of wheat in the world, as well as Canada, which is also a major producer. And we both talked about how we could increase and disseminate more rapidly food shortages. And in addition to that, we talked about urging all the European countries and everyone else to end trade restrictions on sending limitations on sending food abroad. And so we are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages.
Wow. So, how is this going to affect our people? What is this going to do in turn to us? We know that when you experience a lack of, that survival mode starts to kick in, and you'll do anything you can to try and alleviate your situation, which will go into our next topic, which is our latest Israelite news: violence in Babylon. What has been going on? I'm sure everyone has heard. Um, what happened in New York was such like, what is going on? It just seems so chaotic. For this man to the left, throw a smoke bomb in the subway, shoot 10 people. No one died, thankfully, but it's very suspect, the details surrounding this event. How could he pull something of this magnitude off like this? He really doesn't even seem that concerned. You have to wonder, was there some other outlying force that was instigating this attack? Not even just him. There was so many shootings over Easter weekend, quote unquote Easter. So many shootings that occurred. And it's like, it seems like every time a Babylonian holiday comes around, it's just so much violence ensues. And you have to wonder, does it have anything to do with the state that we're heading into? People are on edge. We're seeing that more and more as well. Why is it so much violence during these times of the year? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. It's just a sign of the times. Our people are, it's just, sometimes there's a movie called The Manchurian Candidate, and you have to wonder sometimes if you've seen that movie, you know what I'm getting at. I wonder if some of these things are controlled as part of that distraction that we were talking about earlier to keep us off the bigger picture. That's just a question. We can't say that emphatically, but that's something that's a question that we can, look into. Because a lot of times they hide things in plain sight. They give it to you. They give you the answer to things in Hollywood, and we take it as Hollywood.
For sure. And even with this situation with the man in New York with the subway incident, a couple days prior, like a day prior, he was in a town named Moons Township. And in this town, the military actually takes part in disaster simulations where they like have mock disasters and they simulate like what would happen. Why was he in this town a day before this disaster took place? Not trying to, say anything or say, hey, this is what this is, or I'm not trying to conspire some wild story. I'm just looking plainly at the facts. Why was he in this location where they practice disasters? And everything about this entire story was just so strange. Like, there's no way. The subway police did not catch him the day this happened. I thought the subway police were deep in the subways. You can't get away with anything down there. Number one. Number two, of course, the cameras were not working and did not catch what happened. Of course they didn't. And so why would USA Today even come out with an article saying, oh, it's not a false flag situation? Who said it was? Why are y'all even speaking that type of terminology unless you're trying to hide something?
Absolutely.
So yeah, moving past that, definitely something to keep an eye out on. It could be, like you said, another distraction from what's really going on, but it's definitely very suspicious indeed.
Yes. So we have to keep our eyes open and be attentive to beyond the surface level what's going on and really do our own investigation and just don't be so quick to accept what we're being told.
Yes, for sure. And even speaking on firearms, in Las Vegas, there was a firearm class that was put on. And actually, it was very racist terminology used with this firearm course. A lot of things that, we as people of color deal with. We're going to take a look at this here shortly. It's like, why are we being described in this manner? And these are supposed to be jokes. Because you're an Afghan instructor, you're allowed to be racist. Like, let's take a look at this.
Stop your fucking laughing. Nefi Kaliki, an instructor at a Las Vegas concealed carry weapon event, gave a presentation where he lampooned gun safety.
The rules are different for races, right?
Kaliki presented a slide of firearm safety for Black people in which a caricature of a Black man, presumably in a gang, with a bandana over his face, in baggy jeans and a tank top, holds a gun cocked sideways. He goes on to list racist rules for Black gun owners.
Always keep the gun right side up. Always lick the chicken grease off your fingers before shooting. Always make sure there's a Black person around so you have someone to blame for everything that goes wrong in your life. And always aim for small children to ensure you actually hit another game.
Like, wow. What? This is at a concealed carry weapons course. This is what's on the slideshow. Always lick the chicken grease off your fingers.
Wow.
Make sure a white person is around so you have someone to blame for everything that's going wrong in your life. We can just stop right there on that one. We don't have to blame y'all. We know where to blame for the state that we're in because of our disobedience to the Most High. There's no one to look around to and blame. Now, for those who are unconscious of why we're in the state that we're in, they may look to them and blame. I mean, rightfully so. You all have caused a lot of issues in our lives. But for this to be a concealed carry weapons course and people are supposed to be coming here to be educated on how to protect themselves, and you're making jokes like this.
Wow. Wow. You know, that what it does for me is it just continues to paint the true picture that the more things change, the more they stay the same. You know, a lot of times our people think that because we're in the 2022 year, that all of a sudden everybody's singing Kumbaya. There's no conversations going on with other people that are detrimental to our people, using derogatory terminology and really talking down to us. Still today, it doesn't matter how much money you have, There are certain country clubs that they will not let you in. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, and if you're black, you can't get in. It's the same thing. It continues to echo today. And it's important for our people to understand we are still not accepted. And what does that mean? That means we should not be trying to be accepted.
Right.
Instead, we need to unify together.
Yes, definitely. We don't need to look for acceptance from people who don't respect us. I don't want to be accepted from in a space where I'm not respected, because that's not true acceptance. So, speaking of not having acceptance, I think it's very interesting how the United States is treating the refugees in Ukraine. Much love, much care, much sympathy. I think I saw like 3 billboards today, stand with Ukraine. I've never seen a sign that said stand with Haiti, stand with Mexico. I've never seen that. I mean, look at how our president is just embracing this child and is just so happy to be near her. First of all, the mom is looking like, I got my eyes on you, like, because we know creepy Joe. But why is he showing so much love to the Ukrainians? But our people cannot get that same love. I mean, look at this, kissing the kids.
Right, right. To jog everyone's memory, go back to the time of Rwanda when they were having genocide occurring with other nations in that area. No European country stepped up to the plate whatsoever. It's just another issue of black people killing black people. But we're supposed to buy into the whole schema or storyline that they're painting about Russia and the Ukraine. We need to step back and not even have anything to say. Let these things occur with their people, because they're surely going to let them occur with our people.
And surely will. I mean, even this next photo that we're about to show, why does this look like something from Roots? Like, I know we're gonna watch Roots. This happened what, last year? This is not a scene from Roots. This was not taken from some history book and they added color to it and this was long ago. No, these are our brothers and sisters in Haiti who were fleeing for their lives and thought they could come over here for help. The same way that America loves to help the Afghans and help the Ukrainians and everybody else they love helping and give asylum to them. We don't get any asylum. We don't get any love. What made us different from them? What made Haiti different from Ukraine?
Right, right. And what the difference is that they are a different complexion. They are a different people. So they care about their own, and they could care less about us. What that means for us is that we need to start caring for our people and stand up for our people and gravitate to our people only. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself. You can't love anybody else.
Yes. I mean, even speaking on that, gravitating to our people, stand up for our people don't like doing that for whatever reason. Actually, Malcolm Nance was in the news recently. He thought he should take it upon himself to stick up for Ukraine. I guess he feels bad for them. He said, you know what? Nah, I'm done with the talking. It's time for action. So he actually volunteered himself to join the international force to fight Russia and Ukraine. A black man did this. Why did he feel so compelled? And I just find it so interesting that he really is risking his life to help Ukraine when they hate him and people like him. They hate us. They literally had a sign not long ago in Ukraine. People were holding signs that said "Free Derek Chauvin." I know y'all know that name. Derek Chauvin is the officer who killed George Floyd. They're supporting him, but one of ours is supporting them. You see how twisted this is? Like,
wow, it just goes into the whole understanding of the Willie Lynch letter, Karl Marx, those figures that wrote theses about how to control our people to a point where it would take 400 years to where at a certain point, you don't have to have a cage to keep them in. They won't go out that cage on their
Wow.
own. And that's where we're at today. You
I mean,
know?
look at this sign. This was literally in the crowd. They said, free the police officer who killed George Floyd. George Floyd, the murder that really struck all the protests and riots, and everyone wants change now. That whole situation, although we've been getting slaughtered by the police since the beginning. So I don't know what this set this off, but it did. So be it. They said to free him, but one of our brothers went over there to fight for their country.
Wow. Wow.
Even Biden showing love to them, like
2 weeks since Evgeny and Lyudmila escaped the hell of Mariupol to Russia, and then finally to safety in Estonia.
Before now, it was just
Stress.
stress. Here, we're able to really relax. I feel that we are safe here.
They lived across the hall from each other in an apartment building on the northern edge of Mariupol.
For 14 days from the beginning of the war, somehow all the shelling would all fly past us.
But their luck would soon run out. In the relentless bombardment of the city, their building was eventually hit. The damage, though, was limited enough for them to stay, even without power, water, heat, or a cell signal.
When you hear these explosions, you have an idea the direction they're coming from, and you know what you have to do: lay on the ground, run, or sit down. But silence is horrifying.
I'm honestly done. Like, I'm just done. I'm disgusted that he really thought it was his job to go over there and fight for people that hate him. So I'm good on that. Even speaking towards that hate, Anthony Mackie, who I'm sure everyone is familiar with in our community, pretty well-known actor in Hollywood, he hosted the Country Music Awards for 2022. I believe this was a couple weeks ago. And actually, a white nationalist had some very interesting things to say about that situation. You know, he was like, this is not Wakanda. He does not like the fact that we're occupying the same place. Honestly, trying to figure out why. Patrick Howley was not cool with it whatsoever. And what's really the large issue with that? What's the problem with Anthony Mackie hosting the Country Music Awards? I didn't know that country music was exclusive to white people only. If I'm not mistaken, Black people had a lot to do with the origination of country music. Am I not?
You're absolutely right. When you really go and dive down into the history of country music, it originated from blues. That the whole genre of the blues circuit is where country music got its pull from, and they directly benefited off the concepts in blues. Even right now, one of the biggest country icons would be Hootie and the Blowfish. And if you know who they are, Hootie is one of our people. He is so-called a Black man. He is Israel, and he has a very big following in the country genre. But again, that genre comes from the blues circuit. And they openly have discussed that several times. There have been documentaries about that to prove that. That's just not my word. Those are things that you can research yourself.
This award show was really kind of a train wreck. There was a chick who was co-hosting it, and they said that she tested positive for the Rona. So let's take a look last night. I don't know who this Black guy is who's hosting it. It's supposed to be country music. No offense. I mean, y'all have hip-hop and basketball. You know what I mean? It's like, just fly with your flock, bro.
Fly with your flock.
You're like, the melanated people invented country music. At the CMT, we was making country music in Wakanda before Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard done stole the Black man's country music.
Done stole. Why is he speaking like
There
this?
were so many black people there,
Mm.
sorry to say, but like so many
Wow.
black celebrities who have nothing to do with country music. And it's like, why? No disrespect to the funky brothers of music. I love Earth, Wind and Fire, Run DMC, etc. But I mean, like, country music's different. Country music's different. It's not Wakanda.
Wow.
Not
Wow.
Wakanda. He said it's
Where
different.
where did that come from?
No disrespect. What had me was him saying no disrespect. After you've just disrespected, then you come back and say no disrespect.
Right. Where
How
did
about
that come from?
where did it come from? And how about you all did not start anything? Y'all stole everything and you pillaged
Absolutely.
everybody. You know what you invented? What you invented was chaos and destruction. You can have that. You can be the father of chaos and destruction. We will give you that because there's evidence to actually back that up. But as far as
Absolutely.
everything else, you can't claim any genre of music because we invented all of it.
Right. Right. It's just, oh my goodness, there's so many different things that we can look at. Uh, whether it be something positive that our people come out with, they copy, or even something negative. If you go look at sagging jeans, which I am not proud that our people came up with that, but I can go out here, I've been outside and I can see these white people sagging their pants. I'm like, okay, you know, you know where that came from. Although
Right.
it's something negative, they even copy the negative. So even in our worst hour, they want to mimic us.
Yeah.
So it's time for our people to be aware of what's going on and know that even at your worst fallen state, these people are seeking to copy and emulate you. So that means it's time for you to humble yourself to your creator, which is why we're here today to rise as a nation and come together as a people and be the healing balm for the rest of the world. Because after Yah heals us, we will be the healing balm for the rest of the world. But we have to step up.
We do have to step up. And not just us. We need to start holding these companies accountable too. Moving on to our next subject. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with the show Not So Pretty. It just premiered on HBO Max last week, I believe, or maybe the week before. But it really is diving in and exposing the dangers that's in makeup and beauty products, and the truth behind what these companies, household names, family brand companies, how they're purposely making us sick. I'm not sure if anyone is aware, for those that wear makeup or use baby powder, that they contain traces of asbestos.
Looking good is all.
Mm.
And we know how detrimental asbestos is. I mean, I don't know if you were ever, as a kid at school, when they would come and test the asbestos, if they found it, everyone had to go home and they had to go fix some stuff and then you could come back. You know, asbestos is a serious thing. Talcum powder, a serious thing. All of these things are major carcinogens. And you can't tell me that this is acceptable for beauty products that people are putting on their face. It's getting in their skin, it's getting in their brain. Even these ladies doing the nails, they were talking about how they had tumors because of the chemicals. And these companies know this. One major proponent of all the debauchery, Johnson and Johnson. I know everybody is familiar with Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson, a family company. I know y'all have seen that on the commercial. What type of family company purposely puts carcinogens and harmful products in their stuff and sells it to us? Not only sells it, they did a human experiment on prisoners in Philadelphia, our men, where they tested asbestos on them. And many of them got sick. Some of them died, actually, from these experiments. So then you have to ask, okay, I'm paying you to experiment on me.
Mm-hmm. And you know, and the other sad thing is that they're FDA approved. So what does that
Wow.
tell you? The,
Wow.
the
FDA.
very
Who is that?
the federal government is approving the usage of these carcinogens upon this people. So what does that tell you?
Wow. And this is the same company too. We're not even talking about, the jabs and the serpent's venom, whatever we want to name it at this moment. But Johnson and Johnson, they produce their own version of it. Why are we trusting for the people out there who entertain that? Why are we trusting this when they've already been proven to be liars? They've already proven to use us as test subjects for their experiments, document what happened, like you're a little lab rat, try and rework it, but still you're selling poison to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Straight poison.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, that's why we should be promoting more of our own businesses that come up with our own natural products, you know, for multi purposes. And so it's time for us to love each other and really embrace each other. Everybody else does it. It's time for us to do it.
It certainly is. And so I'm happy you even raised that. It is time for us to do our own thing. We've had several guests on the Kingdom Magazine with us. She Brew Directions out of Atlanta, Georgia, Nape Soul out of New Haven, Connecticut, Hebrew Care out of Reading, Pennsylvania, that are making natural things that are not harmful to us, will actually help heal you. I don't know if anyone saw the Hebrew Care episode where they were discussing the use of colloidal silver and dandelion root and all these natural things that the Most High has placed on this earth for us to use to heal our bodies, to where you wouldn't need to go to a Johnson and Johnson for things like that. They make their own soap, they make their own lotions and moisturizers that don't have glycerin in them or carcinogens in them, that are actually good for your body, and even better, from your own people. Why
Mm-hmm.
would you not want to know the faces behind the producers of your stuff? You don't know who's making that stuff in the lab at these companies. It sounds like a whole bunch of witchcraft to me, if we're being
Absolutely.
honest.
Absolutely. You know, just as it's important for us to be knowledgeable about what we put in our mouths, our bodies consume and digest what we put on top of our bodies, just like what you put in your mouth. So if you cannot consume what you put on top of your body,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be using it on top of your body. If you
Yep.
can't put it in your mouth.
Yep. And I guarantee you, if we put any of that stuff Johnson and Johnson makes in our mouth, you're seeing the grave expeditiously. You definitely are. Definitely are. So I definitely want to
Absolutely.
give a huge shout out to our sponsors. Um, Hebrew Care. We love Hebrew Care, love everything they stand for. The United Nation of Israel, our love notes, um, everything that we're working towards is just working towards a sustainable community, a community where we can enrich ourselves and empower ourselves and not be reliant on harmful business practices or corrupt business, where we're really just circling everything within our own communities. That's why, we want currency that's backed on love. We don't want currency that's based on debt. We don't want to see dead people on our money and we're using that to show how much value we have. Why would I feel valued by a dead white man on my money? I don't feel valued by that. So we're definitely going to move into a realm where we're sustaining ourselves, growing our own food, not being reliant on people who don't care about us. And we're only dealing with those that are esteeming each other, lifting each other up, and helping each other grow, because that's what we're all about. So, even speaking to the growth, our last topic for tonight, touching on the fight against anti Semitism, we would love to hear just a little bit about what the United Nation of Israel was doing during the trip to Los Angeles a couple weeks ago.
All praises. Well, you know, anti-Semitism is real. The whole show tonight was about anti-Semitism. Anything that affects our people affects us holistically. And we are descendants of Shem. Noah's oldest son. And so we have to tell our truth, understand our history, our culture, and know who we are. So in relation to our trip in LA, we had met with a host of people and we made several connections that we didn't know what we were going to make. But just as is written in the word of the Almighty, we follow in the pillar of fire by night, cloud of smoke by day. We were invited by the Nation of Islam and by way of Rizza Islam, who's a very profound brother that's on social media. And many Israelites will say, oh, why is the United Nations of Israel connecting with Islam? That's a total different religion. Well, we're not a religion at all. If you Israel, that is your nationality, based upon what thus saith Yah. We have to understand we came out of Egypt. We came out of Egypt with different belief structure. Did Yah leave anybody behind in ancient Egypt because they had a different belief structure? Or matter of fact, did we even know what the belief structure was in relation to the covenant that the Almighty made with Israel on on Mount Sinai and Horeb or in Moab? No, we didn't.
Right.
So we're making this we made this connection with the Nation of Islam, and they are embracing nation. You see here in this picture, you see us all holding the banner, holding the flag of the United Nation of Israel. And the Nation of Islam was gifted with a flag, and they embrace it. It is time for us to put aside all of our differences and understand that we are a people. We have to put aside religion, belief structure, and doctrine, and know that the Almighty's word said, it's time for us to gather together, O nation not desired. He didn't put on Israel's plate to separate. He will do the separation, not you. So your job is to love your brother and sister, come together, know that you got some differences, but it's now time to come together as one nation and let the Almighty purge as he sees fit. No matter, and as a matter of fact, it is not even about Israel letting Yah purge. He's going to purge. Matter of fact,
Right.
those that don't come together and don't humble themselves, you'll find yourself as being the 2/3 that don't make it. In all your self-righteousness, as you declaring yourself to be so holier than thou and beating yourself on the chest, you need to do a self-check. So let us self-check and let us love each other as the Almighty called us to. And so we're making that connection with the Nation of Islam, and they're embracing nation, and any other group or organization of people out there that is of Israel, no matter if they know it or not, it's time for us to come together. We are having a flag raising in North Carolina where we're calling our people to come together and form an alliance as a nation. And we're also having a day of mourning next year on September 16th. I think I said that right. And we're going to have that as well, where we're calling all our people. And this event that's happening in North Carolina this year will be on the 18th, and you'll see more information about that. We'll be having shows dedicated to that and flyers and different things dedicated to that as well. So stay in connection with www.yahwehgather.us and also Kingdom Over Everything, Kingdom Magazine. We will be promoting those events. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All praise to the Most High for this. This has been a great conversation tonight. I'm so grateful that we dove into these distractions that are keeping us from being focused on the right things, which is nation, gathering as a nation together. I'm so grateful for the alliances that we're making, the connections we're making, the way that we're building together. And before you know it, we'll all be together, doing what we need to be doing in this realm to restore righteousness back to the world the way that the Most High sees fit. So all praises to the Most High for that. Thank you so much for joining us again, Elder Shemaiah. Thank you for all the gems that you left us with. I believe we have a lot of work to do, family, but there's so much that we're going to accomplish together as long as we keep Yah first and work together.
Hallelujah. All praise. And I'd like to thank our family for joining in. And let us continue to stay connected. For we are the seed of the Most High, and it's all contingent upon our humility. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And for all of our viewers and subscribers, do not forget to like and comment. Let us know your thoughts on all the distractions that we discussed tonight. Let us know how you think we should be working together and gathering. If you have any ideas, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're not a subscriber already, definitely do subscribe. We have some more amazing information to share with you in the coming months. So stay tuned to that. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.